Hey, it's Nicky from StealthShampoo, and once again we are back covering Hegster Season 3, number 15. I run the Friday tournaments, cast them on twitch.tv/HegsterTCG, stream on my own at twitch.tv/StealthShampoo. We're going to break down the top 16 decks once again that we saw. And we have some really interesting ones that were on the lower side of Top Cut. Starting off with Daniel's Mad Party deck. Now, Mad Party I feel like is a deck that is really being kept out by ADP, but you can see in round 8 actually beating an ADP player, and the rest of time just kind of dodging him out. Beats out Blacephalon, which I feel like Mad Party is extremely favored against Blacephalon, because it just has way less setup. Once it starts hitting for 120 damage, which isn't particularly hard with Mad Party, that's only 6 Pokemon in discard, you're good to go. You just knock out Blacephalons all day, and Blacephalon needs to weld and find energies to throw away, and it's a really hard matchup, I think, for Blacephalon to keep up with. So Blacephalon going to be going down to Mad Party from Daniel here. And Daniel actually has been performing extremely well with a variety of different decks lately, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Losing to Excadrill and Senti Scorch. Let's take a look at the actual list here. Once again, I want to emphasize the fact that these lists that I'm putting out for you guys are all from the players, so I want to give them credit. But also, anytime I'm talking about an archetype or a deck, we're talking about the highest level of play. Just because you don't see your favorite deck represented here in the top 16 Hexers doesn't mean you shouldn't play it. You can play it at a challenge or something smaller. But as far as these bigger events go, these are the decks you're going to want to be playing. Lots of Ball Search. We actually have 4 Great Ball, 4 Pokeball, 4 Quick Ball, and I'll even count Evolution Incense. Tons of search options. This is a super aggressive Mad Party list. I didn't get to see Daniel play any of his rounds, but triple Dedenne, Electromagnetic Radar. You're just trying to throw Pokemon away as quickly as possible. We don't really care about putting these 2 prizes down. Just take quick and hard knockout. So cool to see Mad Party represented at exactly number 16. Coming at number 15, we have Tomb Dawn Fan. Actually insane. Going to be slaying out here and unfortunately falling in top 16. Let's take a look at the actual list here from Diego. Now, this list is running the Phanpy and Dawn Fan. These are new from Vivid Voltage, and they are actually promo cards as well. That Phanpy art is incredible. This Phanpy does more damage for the number of damage counters that are on it, but there's no memory capsule here. I didn't actually get to see any of these matches played, but Earthquake does damage to the bench. We all know what Spiritomb from Unbroken Bonds does by now. Jinx moves damage counters around, and this Heracross here, turn the tables if your opponent used a GX attack on their last turn. Your opponent shuffles their active Pokemon, all cards attached to it, into their deck, so that's mainly going to be used for ADP. Really cool to see a deck like this come out and perform. This Dawn Fan, of course, is going to be super effective against lots of cool things like Eternatus and like Pikarom. So fighting is just a great typing to have right now, and that Cape of Toughness will augment the health of all your Pokemon even more. So if you can get a Cape of Toughness and more than 5 damage counters in Spiritomb usually caps out at 160 health, or 160 damage rather. It can take away 160 health. So it usually knocks out Dedenne when it has 5 damage counters on it. But with Cape of Toughness, it can do even more damage than that. And Dawn Fan using Earthquake doing 20 damage to the bench, it can just pile on more and more damage. Next up, another insane crazy deck. These first couple decks are all just insane archetypes that you don't really see all that often. But this is Aurora Welder Box coming in, going to be beating Pikaroms because it does play the Rhyperior, and going to be losing to things like Blacephalon and ADP, and did lose to Senti Scorch in top 16. But there's so many different Pokemon. I really feel like this list is not something that I'm skilled enough to pilot, but I hopefully get correct as to why each of these cards are included. So first off, one thing you'll notice is a lot of cards that are used in this deck have 1 colored attack cost, whether it be Lightning for Vikavolt, Orbeetle's Grass. I actually can't even figure out what Orbeetle's used for, or Rhyperior Fighting. And so Aurora's going to cover that, and Welder's going to grant fulfillment for the rest of these colorless attacks. Milotic going to be very useful in the Senti Scorch matchup. You just attach 1 Aurora and then weld to the rest of it. Vikavolt the same for the item lock. That's probably for the Blacephalon matchup. Rhyperior, like I said, fighting is going to be a sick typing to knock out things like Eternatus and things like Pikarom. I honestly don't know what the Orbeetle was used for, and I actually don't even know what Orbeetle's base attacks are. I know what Orbeetle VMAX does, but Orbeetle, normal Orbeetle, Strafe does 20 and you switch with one of your benched Pokemon, and Mysterious Wave does 30 damage for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon, 50 plus. That's kind of like what Indeedee does. Indeedee does 60 damage for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon, plus 10 for Psychic, Colorless, Colorless. Also heals, but I imagine Indeedee is used actually in decks like this to knock out Senti Scorches. Orbeetle is an interesting inclusion. I didn't unfortunately get to cast any of these matches, but we have Rhyperior, some Jirachis for consistency, and Giant Hearts are going to be finding these fire energies. Alright, hopping in here to number... We're still in top 16. We haven't gone to top 8 yet. Going to be an ADP list, losing to Eternatus. If we take a look at the list here, very straightforward. Everyone's playing triple water energy right now in ADP because crushing hammers are so prevalent in the format. If you prize a water gets hit by a hammer, that's Jeej. Aegislash I feel like is very, very required if you're going to be playing Hegster or any other big event. It takes what is a difficult matchup in Aegislash, without Aegislash, going up against Decidueye Obstagoon. That matchup can be difficult. You can still sprint them down, but it takes that matchup from difficult to effectively an auto win. Even if Aegislash is prized, which is unlikely, but there's a 10% chance that happens, you can probably get an Altered Creation GX off and then rip it off of the prizes before your opponent really locks you out using these 4 bosses orders. Reset Stamp is going to be the kind of tech card of choice in this ADP list. We don't see too many ADPs running Reset Stamps, but Greycatcher, Tool Scrapper are just busted right now. Viridian Forest also to find some energy, and this ADP list is going out on a top 16 from Crab here. We're gonna hop in on Sebastian's list here. Let's check out these matchups. This is going to be, I think, one of our last players who fell in top 16. Going to be losing to Vitor, who went really, really far in the event. I won't spoil anything. Losing to Pikarom. And this is ADP phones. Hilariously enough, 2 copies of Oranguru to utilize that Rotom Phone. Rotom Phone lets you put a card onto the top of your deck, and then you can use Oranguru Primate Wisdom, put that card into your hand. Maybe even throw a metal on top of the deck if you want to hit an Intrepid Sword metal for free. Phones is just going to be a nice consistency booster, and that's going to be the kind of tech card in this ADP. There's lots of different variants of ADP. Pokemon Catchers kind of fell off, but there's Hammers, Rotom Phones, people throwing in Reset Stamps, and Rotom Phone going to be boosting the consistency of this list. Notably not running any Big Charms or any Stadiums whatsoever. No Chaotic Swell, no Viridian Forest. And Pikarom is going to be the one knocking this out of top 16. All right, we have a Korean player here, Kappa. I have no idea what their real name is because a lot of players have different Limitless names, Discord names, and things that they use to register as their real name. So I apologize that I might not know a lot of these players' names. But this is going to be one of my actual favorite deck archetypes to play. This is a lot of fun. Welder Mewtwo. Let's take a look at the matches here. Going to be knocked out by Blacephalon, which Blacephalon, I mean, sometimes they just draw the nuts. They get that turn 1 knockout on the Mewtwo, and there's not too much you can do about it. Also losing to Pikarom. Now that's going to be a common theme throughout this video, people just losing against Pikarom. So this is a deck that I've actually played quite a bit of, and I even played a little bit for Players Cup 2 qualifiers, even though I didn't use all of my keys. But the Incineroar going to be stripping off energies from your opponent just for 3 colorless. You can do 130 damage and remove something like a Speed Lightning or a Coating Metal Energy, something like that. Now, speaking of Coating Metal Energies, Reshizard. This deck has such a great matchup against Luke Metal. If you can get rid of their Coating Metal Energies, or they don't play them and they don't find them, slam down Reshizard and just blows through all of their Pokemon. Charizard is a key card because it can do 300. So if you go first with Mew Mew, you attach from hand, weld, attach, and on your second turn, you can hit for 300 on ideally an ADP. And that pretty much just wins you the game right there. You're just so far ahead at that point. Naganadel for sniping, 170 damage is enough to take out Dedenes. Vileplume is a super MVP, 180 damage. Now, it does do less damage if Mew Mew does have damage counters on them. But 180 damage for 2 energy, one of them has to be an Aurora, is insane. That's absolutely insane. That really helps you line up a 2-shot. Indeedee, like I was saying earlier, helps line up some knockouts on Senti Scorch. Greninja is going to be your out that Mist Slash and Nora's effects on your opponent, so you can get around things like Obstagoon, you can get around things like Decidueye, and also if your Vileplume is prized, hitting for 130 isn't the end of the world. Gengar Mimikyu is, I feel like this is a card that is either really, really super impactful or never used. It is 2 Psychic and double Aurora energy is kind of hard to get to, but Horror House can sometimes buy you that extra turn you need to get the dub. And Poltergeist also, if your opponent just has a super, super fat hand, you can really punish that. 4 Welder, of course, 4 Giant Hearth. This deck struggles. If it struggles to find fire energies and welders, you're going to have a bad time. You're Dead-Eye changing pretty much every turn, looking for these Cherish Balls, looking for Welder, looking for Giant Hearth. Get this fire in hand. And Aurora energy also pairs really well because you can throw away things like Incineroar and Naganadel out of your hand. Hilariously enough, I've actually ended up with only Greninja GX in hand and actually played Elusive Master to draw 3 cards. So to get myself out of a really small hand that's super unlikely, but Aurora energy can help strip the hand of extra cards so that if you're really in a pinch, Elusive Master comes in and you draw 3 extra cards off of something like a really harsh reset stamp. And Great Catcher, of course. 1 copy of Great Catcher is interesting because Naganadel can just snipe to Dene, but you can use Great Catcher to, say, gust up an ADP who's maybe trying to chill on the bench and use Charizard GX to knock it out after you weld. So I really like this deck and it as an archetype. It's just it's very, very, I think, a high skill. I wouldn't recommend picking it up unless you were really looking for a technical deck to play. All right, hopping in Kobe here. Going to be losing to Lucas. Lucas, one of the busted, I believe he's a junior player, playing a really cool alternatives deck. But we're going to talk about Kobe first. Kobe was playing Reshiram, Charizard, Firebox, pretty much slaying out everywhere except against Sentie's Scorch. And this is the list right here. So Firebox is an archetype that I did not expect to be in the top 16, but it has some powerful things up of its sleeve. For example, of course, the Volcanion that Sentie's Scorch plays. Or Corey to draw some cards. Double maxes out. So if your opponent takes 5 prizes, if they take 6, obviously you lose. But if your opponent takes 5 prizes, that's 5 times 30. It's 150 damage plus the base 120. Double V can hit for 270 damage to finish out the game, which is enough to knock out pretty much every tag team except for, you know, ADP. 270 is an insane number to hit for. 4 Welders, of course, are always going to be a staple in these kinds of decks, and really just getting that Weld attached down and hitting that Flare Strike and making sure that your opponent can't knock you out in one shot, because ADP does top out at 260 damage, and if they're not playing Vitality Band, they actually can't one-shot your Reshizard, and so that's going to be a little bit troublesome for them to take the dub off of just knocking out, say, like a Volcanion and then a Reshizard, because that's going to be 3 attacks. So the 270 health is a really key number for this particular deck. We're going to hop over here to Jonathan Patricia, who was playing Luke Metal, and this is a really straightforward Luke Metal list. Losses were taken where losses are expected. Luke Metal really loses hard to Sentie's Scorch. Even with coding Metal Energy, I feel like there's not much you can do about that particular matchup. Did beat a Blacephalon. If you aggressively Marnie them out of existence, I feel like it's winnable, although still difficult. I don't think Jonathan was playing the Tapu Fini that we've seen some Luke Metal players play. But Luke Metal has such a clean Eternatus matchup. Unless they are playing Poison and Sableye, you can beat any build of Eternatus super easily. And then, of course, beating out ADP, Colossal. I think these are all pretty good matchups for Luke Metal, making it one of my favorite decks in the format right now. It just loses too hard to Sentie's Scorch. And taking a look at the list, there are no techs in that Galarian Stunfisk, Aegislash, Tapu Fini to win matchups against Decidueye and Blacephalon. So really straightforward list here. Playing 4 coding Metal Energy. And of course, did need it in this Blacephalon, early Blacephalon matchup. Probably. I didn't see it. Maybe they just Marnied him out of the game. 4 Hammers is going to be the extra 4 slot of choice. I feel like Luke Metal kind of has 4 slots to work with after you build out the skeleton of the deck, and those slots usually go to Crushing Hammers, Pokegears, or Finis and Stunfisks. Not running into any Decidueye, but it looks like the Fini may have been helpful in some instances. Still getting a top 16 though. So still got past Blacephalon without Fini. And really straightforward, no frills Luke Metal list. Just running Hammers. All right, Jobberman here. Going to be playing ADP, losing to Eternatus in the round of 8, or top 8. And just looking at the list here, it does play the Aegislash. Didn't run into any Decidueye, it looks like. ADP, I mean, not much to say here, is running the Big Charm, which can help. ADP will go up to 310 health, and so that forces the Eternatus player to either find something like some poison or some Zigzagoons to really knock you out. It can really save you, because if you get that Alter Creation and then an Ultimate Ray off, you're in a really good position to win against Eternatus when you're playing ADP. Big Charm is also useful. You can stick it on Zacian, and that way Luke Metal can't one-shot your Zacian, but a lot of Luke Metal players are playing Tool Scrapper, so I feel like that one Big Charm isn't going to be super impactful for the Luke Metal matchup, because pretty much every Luke Metal is playing that Tool Scrapper, and 4 Crushing Hammers is going to be the extra 4 cards of choice here, because they're just, I mean, they're just busted right now. Eternatus slows it down, ADP Mirror slows it down, potentially Pikarom stripping enough energy off of Boltons so that they don't get big knockouts on things like Zacian. Alright, Lucas here, playing a super consistent, we did get to watch these matches live on Hegster stream, playing a super consistent Eternatus list here, going to be losing to Colossal, which you're just weak to fighting, like what are you going to do about that? But beating out pretty much everything else. I feel like Eternatus does great against Senti Scorch, won the mirror a couple times, beat ADP, and going to be falling, unfortunately. Now, Lucas had a super commanding lead in one of these games against Pikarom, but just really got hit hard by a reset stamp paralysis, not finding the switch. That's really what the Eternatus matchup comes down to, is you need to find the switch card when you're playing against Pikarom. If you don't, that's going to be it. They're just going to beat you down, take out your Eternatus. All Pikaroms are playing hammers. That slows you down as well. And I feel like Eternatus, if they miss hammers, that's great. If you can power accelerate, that's also good. But you can see Lucas isn't running all basic energy in to use a power accelerator for the effect you need to have that basic energy in hand. And also another Eternatus on the bench to power accelerate too, ideally. But really straightforward list. 3 Spiritomb, going to be choosing to run 4 Zigzagoon, 3 Spiritomb here as the single prize choices. Triple Power Plant to slow down Pikarom players, to slow down anyone playing Dedenes, basically. That's a cool choice there. It doesn't need to run the Dark City because you're not playing the poison, you're just running the goons. Dangerous Drill is also really nice to strip off things like Big Charms. Let's say ADP is a Big Charm on it, Dangerous Drill it off, put a 1 Zigzagoon ping in, full bench, Eternatus, knockout is how you're looking to take that knockout. Did play the 2 Weakness Guard energy, potentially fearing some Colossal, but still lost a Colossal in round 1. It doesn't look like Weakness Guard energy came into play in literally any other matchup, so maybe if you were to look at Lucas's list and change it, maybe the Weakness Guard energy is something to look at. But the 10 count of energy, I think, is really essential, because missing energy attachments on Eternatus is bad, especially when literally everyone is playing hammers. Alright, we got Blacephalon here from Pescurio. Again, I apologize if I don't know any of your guys' names. But going to be a nice fat 16 energy in this list. Blacephalon are all running theme deck levels of energy. And the extra cards that are included in this list here are going to be that Reshizard, like I said earlier with the Firebox deck. Reshizard can't be one-shot by ADP Zacian unless they play the Vitality Band. So Reshizard is actually a really good finisher, allowing you to double blaze for 200 damage, 3 energy, hit that 200, potentially cleaning up the game on a metal Pokemon, something weak to fire, buying you a turn to get yourself set up so that you have something to tank with a 3-prizer at the end of the game. Ideally, maybe not starting it too early also, and just starting one of these Jirachi. So that's going to be one of the cards included in this Blacephalon list that's a little bit different. We also have the Cherish Ball, which I feel like is a good inclusion because it finds Oricorio, Reshizard, and Dedenne, all very essential cards. And the 1 energy retrieval, sometimes we see just fire crystals and all fire, but the 1 energy retrieval is going to be in the list as well. Looks like a lot of Blacephalon players have stopped playing the Marshadow, and if a Chaotic Swell comes down, they just get giant hearts. There's 4 of them, so eventually you will win the Stadium War and get the stadium you want into play. And that deck is going to be going out in the top 8. Kurt here coming out with Senti Scorch, losing to Vitor, playing the Pikarom here, and looks like just a really clean run through Swiss, not hitting any Inteleons or anything that would body Senti Scorch. I feel like it's looking pretty good, but the Pikarom going to be the one loss in the Swiss rounds. And not much to say with Senti Scorch. Sometimes people run 2 Fire Crystals, 11 energy, but this is basically the list right here. Actually going to be playing only 2 Volcanion. Sometimes I see 2 Jirachi, 3 Volcanion, and the Bird Keeper is to stop paralysis. Like I said, if that paralysis goes in and you don't find a switch, that's it. You are just going to not have a great time. And also, if you start Senti Scorch and you're going second and you want Volcanion in the active, then Bird Keeper is another way to get Volcanion in the active, along with these switches, because you can't scoop up net Senti Scorch V. But again, really straightforward list. I feel like when you see deviations in Senti Scorch, it's going to be the plus or minus 1 of Jirachi, Volcanion, Fire Crystal, and Fire. I feel like this just is the Senti Scorch list right here. And of course, stamping your opponent down to a low hand is going to be the play. 2 Dedenne, 1 Crobat. Also, just power plants, of course, can turn off Dedenne, which is why Crobat's also nice. Or if you just have some stuff in your hand, like 3 switch that you don't want to throw away. So this is pretty much like the de facto Senti Scorch list that I've been seeing people really like playing lately. Marlin is going to be playing Pikarom. We're getting into your top 4 now. Going to be slaying it out with a beautiful Swiss run. And you might recognize something. I gotta give myself a pat on the back for my predictions in the last video, but you might recognize something with this Pikarom list right here. This is the exact list that I called out as MVP in the last video, and this list has been unbelievably successful this week. This exact 60, I called this list. I've been playing it on stream as the greatest deck in the game, or my favorite deck, and now right now I'm buying that it's the greatest deck in the game right now. The one change from Anti, who played this list last week, that was made was -1 electromagnetic radar for +1 Cherish Ball. Anti actually saw my video from last week, so thanks for watching, dude, and made that change. And now this list is running events. I believe Zach Lesage, winner of Players Cup 2, did really well at a recent event with this list. This list has been showing up everywhere. Dax actually took this list, I believe, and then lost to Decidueye. Got second place in another event. I believe that was Hegster on Monday, if I'm not mistaken. And that's exactly what I said last week. My analysis was this list loses to Decidueye and is pretty much good. And so it was incredible to see this list go all the way to the end of Hegster's on Monday and then lose to Decidueye. A lot of people have been playing this exact 60, Gabriel Smart calling it optimal Pikarom, in another event. And this is how you got to play it now. You're not losing to Eternatus because you cut the Team Yell Grunt for an extra Bolton. And Colossal, of course, kind of a problem, but not when you throw Mew Mew out. Zach Lesage saying that Mew Mew is like an extra Big Charm. So a lot of great players have taken this deck, which, by the way, I correctly called out last week, and been seeing massive success with this exact 60. A lot of top players have been playing this one right now. And, well, spoiler alert, it also won Hegsters this week. So your boy Nikki's predictions are super correct. Anti now actually didn't play this list this week and played Luke Metal. And this is going to be a different person, Marlin, piloting this one. Brazil showing up in force in your top 4. All right, coming up here, Victor going to be actually, I think someone in these last couple decks had to wake up for another tournament within the next 8 hours. So I think someone scooped and didn't play their semifinal round just because both players knew each other and they wanted to get some sleep for the next event. So Victor here is going to be playing that, of course. ADP has the Leon, which is kind of a 4th boss's orders. Double Mawile, just really notable here to maybe screw around with some Decidueye players, forcing those cards down instead of playing the Aegislash, and also can be annoying against Eternatus players, because if you slam their Crobats down and they don't get draw, then you're good to go. Double Great Catcher, which feels terrible in the Eternatus matchup, but feels great in pretty much every other matchup. 4 boss, 1 Leon. This is super aggressive. Eldegoss, boss, double Great Catcher, Leon. This is just such an aggressive list, trying to find those Dedennes and Crobats and then punishing them. I really like it. I actually cut a Water Energy, which makes you a little more susceptible to hammers, but it is what it is. All right, we are getting up here to the cream of the crop. Mark or Merc. Not sure how to pronounce your name, but if you're listening, let me know. Going to be playing that Eternatus, losing to Vitor here, who is going to be playing that Pikarom. And if we take a look at this list here, this is going to be your second place list. It was what I like to call Brick Tarnitus, and boy, did we see it Brick in the finals. Of course, it made it all the way to number 2, actually beat out a Luke Metal player in round 1, and manages to tear all the way through, only losing to another Luke Metal in round 7. And I feel like Poison Eternatus is still not favored against Luke Metal unless it is also running Sableye. Jake actually told me that the Master Luke Metal player, he feels like the matchup becomes slightly unfavored if they play Poison Sableye. But no Sableye out here in this list. It's going to be your number 2 list, playing the Erica's Hospitality, which everyone's playing a ginormous bench in this format. So Erica's Hospitality actually looks pretty good. Notably, no Marnie. Erica's Hospitality is taking up those Marnie slots. Now, you can only play Erica actually if you have 4 or less cards in your hand. And there's just not so much hand disruption in this list by cutting the Marnie, but there are the reset stamps still. Of course, 3 Dark City. You gotta pivot in and out with these Slowbros. All right. Well, you probably recognize this list. I'm not going to go break it down again, but this is going to be the list winning the entire event, piloted by Vitor here, who is going to be absolutely destroying the competition, only losing to a single Senti Scorch in Swiss. And there's just not much to say. I called this list out as an unbelievably powerful list last week, and it performed incredibly this week. It is on everyone's radar now, but it's still performing, and I'm just not sure how anyone can beat this. Like, you can't play Colossal because Mew Mew, right? Colossal's not an easy win. Hammers are essential. Now, Hammers might not seem like, oh yeah, this is like the optimal, most consistent build, but you need Hammers to beat Eternatus and to slow down ADP, ideally. Anyway, it's been Nicky from StealthShampoo. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the breakdown. Subscribe, because I am going to be breaking down Hegsters on Fridays at youtube.com/StealthShampoo, and tune in at twitch.tv/StealthShampoo for some PTCGO gameplay. See you guys some other time.